But I mean, if people need to learn these lessons, I think with anything in life, whatever hardships you go through, I think you just have to see them as points to grow versus a challenging time.
Okay.
Because with anything that happens, like, you can choose to see it as something negative, or you can choose to, obviously, you have a period where it might be hard for you, but you can choose to try to pull yourself out of it and see it in a different light and change a perspective. And I think Michael Jordan said this. He said something like, turn your weaknesses into your strengths.
Welcome to the first ever episode of the Path Project, where we not only provide you with the tools and habits of the greats, but we also enable you to find your path to your dreams or your visions of success. More importantly, while enjoying along the way. Our first ever guest on the show is my former supervisor, who has taught me so much and inspired me on countless occasions. She is a current co-owner of 3 RTP clinics, specializing in sports performance and rehabilitation. She is a supervisor at Champlain College as well as Perform Center, helping student athletic therapists such as myself to reach their maximum potential each and every day. She was a previous member, or previously attended the Jeux de la Francophonie in the Ivory Coast, as well as the Canadian Games, and she was a previous CTSQ member. Enjoy this video where I sit down with the one and only, the amazing Victoria Robinson. Welcome to the first episode of the Path Project. Joined alongside me is the amazing, the one and only Victoria Robinson, better known as Vic. So welcome, Vic. It's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here, and thank you for inviting me.
No problem. So right now we're in the whole COVID, the whole coronavirus pandemic situation. So I was just wondering, out of curiosity, how are you dealing with this whole situation? And do you have any advice for the people out there that are maybe going through a difficult time?
Yeah, well, it's definitely unprecedented. I mean, everyone's just kind of dealing with it as best they can. Personally, I'm still working. I'm a business owner, so we have to try to do everything we can to make sure we come out of this stronger. And I truly am seeing it that way. I'm seeing it as a time to just stop and reflect and kind of focus on the things that matter to you. And it also brings into a little bit of perspective of the things that don't really matter to you and the things that you can kind of just let go. So that's kind of how I'm seeing it. I'm still working pretty hard. I keep a schedule. I find that really helps. So every morning we wake up, obviously, and 9 a.m. we have meetings, myself and Nick and Zoe with RTP. And so we kind of set our day up and have our plans for what we're going to tackle that day. And we kind of are looking through different processes of, how to make RTP better, how to personally make ourselves better, and make sure that we build, the group a little bit stronger. I think that that's really kind of what this is about. And I think a lot of people, I know that it's not the same for everyone, and a lot of people do struggle with this. But it's kind of just how I see everything. It's temporary. Just like life, the only constants change, right? So you kind of got to try your best to go with the flow and take advantage of, whether it's more time with your family or more time at home or more time, with yourself. You have to kind of do the best you can with that. But I've still been working every day.
That's awesome. Yeah. I would expect nothing less. So the next thing I kind of want to get into is just going to be the start off point. And I just want, I guess for the viewers, since I know you quite well at this point, just to tell them a little bit more about who you are and a little bit more about your story, maybe the key points that you want to share.
Okay. Well, I'm an athletic therapist. I graduated from Concordia in 2011, got certified right away, and pretty much been doing my thing since then. I love it. It's not anything it's exactly what I was meant to do. And I love being able to build on it and do, whatever it is that we want with it. It's very dynamic. I used to be very much, when I first graduated, was very much into teaching. So I was teaching courses at Concordia, lab instructor. And then I started kind of getting more into manual therapy and fascia, as you know. And then, I started working at Champlain about a year after I got certified. which was a very interesting experience because it was kind of just, so to speak, fell in my lap. I recognized that a lot of the work I had done had, led me to that, but still, so quite overwhelming for sure as a year, a year certified and going in and running an entire varsity program. Little did I know that I would be there for the next 8 years. So I'm still there now. I also started working at Perform a few years after that as a clinical instructor, which is really great. I was able to teach, which is something that I really love doing as well in a real world setting. So, talking to students and just problem solving and trying to help them, become the best versions of themselves that they could be. And then slowly my practice started turning a little bit more into reconditioning and movement. And so now I kind of like to integrate the two. In 2015, we opened RTP, which is a private clinic. It's a performance and athletic therapy clinic. And now we have 3. So that's pretty cool. So we've just been evolving with that. And, it hasn't always been easy. I have a lot of people say, oh, well, like it looks so easy for you. But obviously there were ups and downs. And, you just kind of, like we talked about before, got to roll with the punches a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's kind of my story in short.
That's good. That's good. I like it. So this is something me and you have talked a little bit about, and feel free to share as much as you want with it. But there was a particular point in your life where I guess there was that whole 3-month experience that I kind of referring to it as. And I was just wondering, from that specific experience, what did you take away? And would you say that it's something that I guess all people need to go through throughout their life? Would
Well,
you talk a little bit about a bit about it first, so that people kind of understand, and then answer those questions if you don't mind.
My master's, I think you're referring to.
Yeah, I think so.
Because after a year after a year of being certified, I decided to do my business degree. It's a certificate in business administration from JMSP, and at the same time, I started my master's. So I was doing that. I was teaching, and I also was working at Champlain as the head athletic therapist. And yeah, that was really rough because I was working a lot. Like, I work a lot, but that was a lot. Coming home and doing research projects and this and that. And I remember not getting much sleep. I think I was running on average of like 5 hours of sleep a night, and then like getting up and just running all day.
Yeah.
And I think there's a point where I look back and I'm like, I don't actually remember 3 months of my life. Like, it just kind of flew. Obviously, I don't suggest people do that. I think it's not great for your health. And looking back, I think it did teach me that, it kind of put things in perspective for me of what's worth it. And, I was trying to get so much done all at once and not really being able to give my 100% in anything.
Okay.
So that is very important to understand, of like, you need to take care of yourself. You got to feed yourself before you can feed others, or, you got to put the mask on yourself before you can put the mask on others.
Yeah.
And so it did, it was hard because, after a time I realized I wasn't really able to give my full capacity to any of the projects. And I did have way too much on my plate. So after that, it kind of also helped me put into focus what mattered to me. And I decided to stop my master's because of that. I wasn't necessarily, as much as I love the work I was doing, I was looking at ACL injury prevention. I also realized that, like, my reasons why I wanted to do it maybe wasn't the right reason. If it was just to have the MSc after my name and wasn't actually contributing to the practice that I was doing now, I really wanted to focus more on that. So I decided to forego my master's and continue on with my business degree and working. And I got a job at Perform not too long after, and the rest is history.
That's good. I like.
Yeah. But I mean, if people need to learn these lessons, I think with anything in life, whatever hardships you go through, I think you just have to see them as points to grow versus a challenging time. Because with anything that happens, like, you can choose to see it as as something negative, or you can choose to, obviously, you have a period where it might be hard for you, but you can choose to try to pull yourself out of it and see it in a different light and change a perspective. And I think Michael Jordan said this. He said something like, turn your weaknesses into your strengths.
Yeah.
So with any of those, it's hard to have those self-reflecting moments and realize maybe you're not good at something, or realize that maybe you weren't doing something well. But you have to kind of see it as just a building point for yourself, so that you can build your foundations a little bit stronger and come out of it even better.
I love that. That's so good. So the next thing I want to talk about is just, I guess, childhood, but also like just growing up throughout your life. Would you say that there was a specific, like, I call it an epiphany moment or a defining moment that changed the way you look at life, your perspective? Like, I know you just mentioned something a little bit along those lines, but like more, I guess, growing up, was there more of a defining moment? Was there a period of time where like a lot changed, would you say? Or
Yeah,
have you kind of always been someone that's like very like goal driven, like that kind of thing?
I've always been very motivated. I've always been very involved. Like, high school, I was editor of the yearbook, and, always just trying to excel. I think my reasoning for that changed. I used to do it to please others. I needed to do it to prove something to others.
Okay.
And in high school in particular, I was bullied in elementary school. I had a
Okay.
specific bully in grade
Okay.
one, in kindergarten, and I remember that vividly. And kind of what was interesting, in high school, I had a group of friends who, were good groups of friends, but with time, you started to see that they probably weren't the best for me.
Mm-hmm.
And it did take a lot, but I think it was in Sec 4, the end of Sec 4, I just said, like, I can't do this anymore. And I actively decided to leave. And I found my own group of friends, which to this day are still my closest friends. And I think that's something a lot of people can relate to. In high school, you're finding yourselves, and you're just trying to fit in with certain groups, and you realize that they might not be healthy for you. It's not that they're bad
Mm-hmm.
people, they're just not healthy for you.
Mm-hmm.
um, and in that case, it did have to do with me excelling, and how was never the type to push it in anyone's face. It was just something I like to do. But a lot of people can struggle with having someone in their life that maybe is really good at something. So I decided to find a group of friends that was more supportive for me. And I think that was the first time in my life that I can really remember where I stood up for myself, realizing that, kind of going against the grain and being like, this is not something I want. And like, I made the choice to do something about it, versus, feeling defeated every day of having friends that were, putting you down, saying mean things, whatever it is. So yeah, I would say that would be one of them. And that was in the start of me trying, me kind of finding who I am, which
Mm-hmm.
is a lifelong process, but
Yeah, for sure.
that would probably be one of the first times where, I kind of put things into perspective a little bit.
That's cool. So I think with me, it was more like for you, it seems like it was very people focused. Like it was who you surrounded yourself with, but you always kind of had that within you, and it brought it out. But like for me, so I was like always very dependent on my parents until I like left from Ottawa to Montreal and came here for school. And I would say like for me that just like over time, that just like I started asking myself questions like, why am I doing this? Why am I here? Like why do I want to pursue AT, all this stuff. And I think
Yeah.
that for me helped kind of change. So me, it was more like environmental, but less like, I guess for me, it was also the fact of who I surrounded myself around. But I think it was like I had to be on my own to discover these things, which is,
Yeah.
but
Well,
yeah.
that's kind of what it comes down to, right? Our context looks different, but the reality is the underlying kind of emotions are there, of you just trying to prove something to yourself and stand up for yourself and do
Yeah.
the hard thing.
Yeah.
Sometimes the hardest thing and the right thing, they're the same thing. So
Exactly.
you kind of have
Exactly.
to, figure out your path and go against the grain and the resistance sometimes to prove that to yourself, and
Yeah.
not necessarily care about what other people think, or be attached to somebody else for that kind of pat on the back, so to speak.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
The next thing I want to ask is about just, I guess, AT, and throughout your life, you've probably been through, I mean, you've definitely been through a lot of ups and downs. Can you pinpoint one specific, I guess, low point, and specifically mentally, I guess, what was going through your mind and what you, like, how you dealt with the problem and what you learned from it?
I mean, I've had a few ups and downs, for sure, as we all have. Some have been on a deeply personal level, relationships ending, or
Yeah, for sure.
losing someone in your family.
Mhm.
Um, some have been more career oriented, where you maybe realize you're not on the right track, or maybe having partnerships dissolve, or new ones built up. And so, I mean, I think, not to harp on one specific moment, but there's obviously a takeaway point of each moment, I think. And I think the thing that I learned the most is that oftentimes we're just stronger than we think. I think, going through these moments, you kind of realize, if you're able to step back and get a little bit of perspective, which sometimes is not easy, and sometimes you do need help doing that. But getting that perspective, you're able to look at it and realize, you know what, I can handle this. And oftentimes the worst is not the worst thing that could happen, right? If you look at it from that perspective, you're able to pick yourself off and kind of pick yourself up and brush yourself off and just kind of move forward. So it's hard to say, because obviously every context is very specific. But I think it's really that, you're stronger than you think, and that your failures don't define you. And if they do, it's only in the positive way, because those failures are what teaches you those lessons.
Yeah.
You're able to kind of grow and realize certain things about yourself or about the world around you, to try to adapt and become better.
That's good. Perfect. Okay, I want to get more AT specific. So athletic therapy. For those of the people watching who don't know, I'm studying athletic therapy right now at Concordia. I'm going into my last year next year. Hopefully everything goes smoothly. And as Vic just mentioned, she's been certified for a good portion of time now. But I just want to ask, um,
Without dating myself.
what would you say is probably the most important ingredient, in your opinion, to being a successful athletic therapist? And how would that answer change if it was like for the people that aren't athletic therapists, just to be successful in general?
Right. I thought a lot about this question, because this is a very good question. And obviously, you want to look at someone's openness, and willingness to learn, because every patient that comes to your door is another opportunity to learn a new thing that you didn't know existed.
Yeah.
Working with students, you're always learning and adapting. But I think the biggest thing, in order to make a successful AT, you could take as many courses as you want. You could have all the knowledge in your head that you want. But if you can't communicate,
Mhm.
there is really no better, like, you're not going to be successful. You have to have the ability as an athletic therapist to communicate with people, to have empathy, of course, but to be able to understand a patient's needs, or a client's needs, or an athlete's needs, and try to translate that in a way to help them. And if you don't have that, you could have all the knowledge in the world. If they don't understand why they're doing something, if they don't understand the importance of it, and if you are not actually hearing the message that they're giving out in terms of why they're seeking help, it's going to be really hard to help them. So I do think that that's probably one of the most important things. And when we talk about communication, it's verbal, it's obviously there's your body language, but it's listening to people, right? It's
Yeah.
really listening to them and understanding where they're coming from, and then
Mhm.
trying your best to help them, because that's why you're there, right? And
Right.
sometimes it won't line up, and you're not that person for them. You're not that
Right.
person that's going to help them, but it's important that you can recognize that and then help refer to someone who can. So I do think that that's probably one of the most important things. And obviously it translates to life and to everyone, because in any job you have to have some measure of communicating.
Okay.
And so if you lack those skills and lack those understandings, it's going to be
Mhm.
very hard for you to move forward.
Mm. Okay. No, that's good. I like it. Perfect. Just getting to the more AT side of you, I guess. What specifically got you into AT, and why do you have such a love and passion for it?
Yeah. Again, not that interesting of a story. I'm a Concordia baby. My mom almost literally, she worked there for 33 years, 35 years. She
Okay.
literally almost had me at work, like her water broke with me at work.
Whoa,
6 years,
okay.
she was still there. I went to daycare there. I went to sports camp there. I did obviously my undergrad there. I did my master's and my business degree there, and now I'm working there. But when I was kind of coming through and I was going through university in SAGEP, I knew I wanted to, do science to keep that background. And I loved biology and I loved anatomy, and I took all those extra courses when I could. And when
Mhm.
it came time to decide, I thought maybe physio would be an option. And my mom was telling me about athletic therapy because she worked at the Loyola campus, knew all the profs, and was saying you
Yeah.
should come to the open house. And I just remember going to the open house, not really knowing what to expect, and kind of just getting this overwhelming feeling that this is exactly where I needed to be. So
Okay.
much so that I didn't apply anywhere else, which in retrospect probably was not the smartest thing.
Okay.
Um, but I didn't apply anywhere else, and I just applied to Concordia and the athletic therapy program. At that point, it was exercise science. And I got in, and I remember SAGEP was hard for me because I knew kind of what I wanted to do, but then you have to do, Cal 2 and all these like, things that I just didn't interest me and were hard. They were really hard.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thought I was good at math until I did calculus.
Mhm.
Um, and then I remember starting university and just being like, this is exactly it. And it did improve my confidence greatly, because I remember sitting there and, just thinking this was it. This was where I needed to be. I love it because we get to interact with people every day. I love that we kind of get to build people back up. So I love puzzles. And when patients or students come to me with a problem where they can't really figure out, I love sitting down and like brainstorming and just trying to come up with ideas as to maybe why this patient has shoulder pain, or why the student might be stuck, or how we can make this athlete better. And it's just such a thrill for me to be able to build it. I also love that it's not, a typical 9 to 5 job. I'm not sitting at home. My days don't ever look the same, as you know. Even the days that are the same, they're really not. There's always something different that's happening, and I find that really interesting. It's always stimulating you, and you're always kind of able to use your skill sets in different ways. So I think it's just the perfect fit for me, and it's a great profession to work in.
It's awesome. Love. So next, I want to talk about communication. You kind of mentioned the importance of it earlier, which is perfect segue into this question now. But I've always kind of, I guess, admired your ability to communicate when you're explaining something to me, when you're explaining, I guess, something to something else, and I hear it. But what would you say? Like, could you give one piece of advice for someone that's trying to, I guess, excel in their communication?
I think it comes easier to some than to others. I think my biggest thing would be to listen to people. Sometimes what we tend to do, and I've been a victim of this as well. We are just trying to get our point across, right? We know what we want to say, and it's really important that we kind of push that point forward, whether it's with a patient or with a student or with a peer. And we're just trying to do that and communicate our opinion. But I think the biggest thing is to listen to others. And we talked about this a little bit before, but it's their body language, it's their words, but it's also their actions. Actions always speak louder than words. So if somebody is telling you something but you're not seeing the kind of actions line up with it, there's
Yeah.
clearly some type of rift and some type of disconnect happening there.
Okay.
And it's important when you're communicating with people, in my opinion, not that I'm, an expert at this, but
Mhm.
it's really important to sit and kind of look at the whole picture, to get a sense of what's going on. And then, have a discussion with them too about it. If someone's not doing their exercises, or a student's not really understanding something and you're trying to get them somewhere and they're not really doing it, to sit down and like, why is this a problem? Why is this happening? Can you kind of walk me through maybe what you feel is some of your difficulties? And then, you're just trying to align, really. That's really what it is trying to align your goals together.
That's cool. It's good. Just trying to process everything you said, but yeah.
Recorded. You can listen to it again.
Yeah, exactly. The next thing is just, I guess, more general. What would you say is one thing that, if you had, like, maybe something that you learned later on, or something that you feel like could apply to the people watching, apply to me or whatever, but what is one thing that you, I guess, would tell a younger version of yourself with the knowledge that you currently have?
If we're talking AT specific, I think something I probably would have told myself when I was younger is just to have a bit more patience. And I say this because I see this a lot with students. They finish school and then they're just trying to, like, okay, push forward. And they're trying to kind of throw everything, everything with the kitchen sink to try to get somewhere. And I think obviously you need to have a little bit of patience, because just like anything good, it takes time. It takes time to build your knowledge. It takes time to build your connections. It takes time just to try to improve constantly, and it's also very tiring. But I also think I probably would have told myself as a young AT to set more goals. And what I mean by that is when I first graduated, I kind of was everywhere. I, was doing events on the weekend and working in the clinic during the week, just, trying to push myself forward, and was in a physio clinic. I wasn't really getting anywhere, but, it was experience and it was important. And it wasn't until I kind of started setting my goals that I started to see results. So what that means is I said, okay, this is what I wanted to do. I wanted to teach, for example. So that's when I kind of signed up to my master's. And then what started happening was I could also choose things that would serve me or serve that goal a little bit better. So if you're somebody who, let's say, wants to work in strength and conditioning, obviously you taking all those weekend contracts, working with young hockey teams could be some good money for you. And it's obvious that sometimes you do have to do that stuff to obviously make money and gain experience. But the flip side is, if you have to choose between that and maybe doing something for free, where it's something like a FMS or SFMA course, or whether it's working with a team just trying to gain that experience, you have to look at what your goal is and choose, right? Otherwise, you're kind of, like we were talking about before, you're giving everything to everyone, you're not keeping anything for yourself, and you're not able to actually give your 100% in focus. So, if that's something you want to do, is go into strength and conditioning, then, you should probably look at what work or what job or what environment might serve you better to get to that goal. So that you're not feeling lost, because it can a lot of times result in a lot of young ATs just feeling completely overwhelmed, not feeling like this career is for them, but really having no direction. So you do have to do those experiences, because sometimes you don't know what direction you want to go into, but once you kind of get a sense of it, try your best to align, be purposeful with your actions, just like we would do with our patients, right? We're telling them, we want you to do this exercise because this is important, and we need to, increase mobility or increase strength. Do that with your life. And just try your best to make sure that everything's kind of aligning. That's not something I necessarily did early on. I'm not saying it hurt me, but it certainly made me feel very lost sometimes.
Okay. Yeah. I really like that. And just going back to the whole patience thing, it's really cool to hear your perspective on that, because I think for me, that's something definitely I've reflected on over the past month or so since we've been in this situation. And I think that's something that's probably one of my biggest weaknesses, is being patient, because you want, especially when you're trying to always push to be better. And like you said, we're always trying to, for the people that are driven and goal oriented, we're always trying to be better, but it's hard to just accept, sometimes things take time, So, I mean, it's just the reality of it. Sometimes that's just the case.
Yeah. And I think, once you've accomplished what you want to accomplish, you'll look back and be like, oh, that's what I had to learn, right? I needed to sit
Yeah,
back
exactly.
feel really crappy because I didn't get that job, or I didn't,
Yeah.
you weren't seeing yourself advance as fast as others. But again, when you set those goals, sometimes you realize, well, I didn't, maybe you didn't want that job in the end. Maybe that wouldn't have been a healthy environment for you because it actually didn't serve where you wanted to go. So yeah, the patience is key. It's key.
The
Not easy.
next, sorry, what'd you
It's
say?
not easy though, but
Yeah, for sure. The next thing I wanted to ask is just generally, what would you say keeps you going on a day-to-day basis? I know you work a lot, and you said, and there's got to be times probably where, as much as you love AT, like it's difficult to get through the day. So, what keeps you going every day? But also, if there is those specific moments that you can, I guess, pinpoint where things are not your day is just not going the best. Everyone has bad days. Is there any like self-talk or anything that you kind of tell yourself, or any like tools, any habits, anything that you do to kind of switch things around so you can get through the day?
yeah. Um, I mean, to make sure that I set myself up for success, it's not anything groundbreaking. It's probably very boring, but I'm a big. I do have an agenda, as you know, and pretty much my life goes in there. So I try my best to set. Every Sunday I kind of look at my week and say, these are the tasks I need to accomplish. This is kind of the schedule that it looks like I have, which doesn't always stay the same, but and then trying to just make sure that I'm not trying to accomplish, if I have a super heavy week, I'm not going to try and accomplish a big project. I'm going to look back and say, okay, where else can I accomplish this, because like I have to make sure that I'm not burning out either.
Yeah.
I try to sleep. That's something I never really did before. I just kind of burnt the candle at both ends. But now I really try to make sure that I get 8 hours sleep. That's the most important thing for me. Like if I don't sleep a lot, I'm off. And you always saw that, I think, Wednesday mornings, because Tuesdays I would work late at night at Champlain.
Yeah.
And then I'd have to be up super early Wednesday mornings. And so I
Yeah.
pretty much only ever had like 5 or 6 hours. And my
Mhm.
days were always heavy and I just had like no brain power.
Mhm.
So that's really important. And obviously, I mean, again, sounds super, have a good breakfast, but it's true. Like to me, I have to fuel myself well throughout the day to make sure that I have that mental capacity to deal with everything that's coming at me.
Mhm.
I think overall it's important to take time for yourself. And I think it's also important to understand kind of what brings you back to yourself. So sometimes, you guys are in school and you're studying all the time and, you're surrounded by your friends, but you notice how those friends are pretty much like the glue that holds everything together.
Yeah.
That's the same thing later on. Like I'm people oriented. And I have a lot of people in my life that I know will bring me back to myself. So if I'm having a particularly rough time with something, I try to make time to, go see them and just kind of connect with them, because in connecting with them, it helps me connect back with myself.
Okay.
I did that the other day. Last Wednesday, I was having a really rough week, and Wednesday I was just kind of like, I can't do this anymore. And I went to go see my cousin and my nephew, and we just played in the backyard. We didn't touch, but it was really important for me because it brought me back to kind of like who I was and the joy that I have with these people. And same thing, I went to go see my parents, and that's kind of that's how I do it. Some people, it might be something different. It might be something really artistic that they like doing, or exercise or whatever. But if you know yourself and try to do that self-reflection, it's important sometimes because you don't always realize that you're overwhelmed until you're oftentimes like, oh, I'm overwhelmed. Like this is
Mhm.
happening.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
I have to look back and do that. I think if, I'm having a rough day, I never really see anything as a bad day, because just like through any day, you can have the worst thing happen, but you could not see it as a bad day because of all the other good things, and
Yeah.
vice versa. So I tend not to see, oh, I had a really bad day. Sometimes I'll say days are more rougher than others.
Mhm.
But, I always tell myself that it's temporary. So just like everything in life, it's temporary. It's not going to last forever. The good's not going to last forever, and the bad's not going to last forever.
For
So,
sure.
I try my best to kind of roll with the punches, and try not to internalize it too much. It's hard. Sometimes you have patients and you have days, as you know, days where
Mhm.
every patient is doing great and you're
Yeah.
helping them, and other days where it just feels like everyone hit a wall and like,
Yeah,
and so
exactly.
you have to kind of, and sometimes it's hard not to internalize that and feel like maybe this was something I did.
Hmm.
um, you just kind of gotta, dust yourself back off and pick yourself up and say, okay, well, today's maybe not great, but it won't last forever. Let's try to do something to make it better.
That's good. That's awesome. Um, so I don't know if you know this about me. I might have mentioned it to you before, but eventually I want to start up some like my own business, like my own clinic type of thing. And obviously, you being a owner of your own, what advice would you give to the people that are looking to start their own clinic, or maybe not AT related, just generally their own business?
Yeah. I think that's awesome that you want to do that. I could talk for days about this, so let me know if I'm going on for too
It's
long.
okay.
I think the most important thing, because I hear that often with students, like, oh, I want to open a business. And the first thing I always ask students is why, or anyone, not students, just ATs or anyone. I ask them why. And the most common answers I get are, one, to make money, and two, to be your own boss. And that always kind of surprises me, because I think owning a business is not about that, because first of all, like, you have to invest a lot of time, blood, sweat, and tears, I like to say, and money into starting something. So it's a risk, just like any it's not an investment, it's a risk. And so you have to be prepared to put that effort in over a long period of time to actually potentially see a fruition and see some money.
Mm-hmm.
um, that's one thing, and it's not guaranteed.
Mm-hmm.
The second thing is to be your own boss. If they want to open a clinic and have employees, yes, you're your own boss, but you're also everyone else's. So you're responsible for these people, and you're responsible to try to build a foundation, build a team, and lead a team. So it's not about being someone's boss. It's about leading a team into, where you'd like to lead them, and having and surrounding yourself with these good people. But it's still a responsibility. So the first thing I would say is, if anyone is interested in opening a business, I would ask the question, why? So what entices you to do that? What's interesting about it? Is it purely an extrinsic thing, or is it something intrinsic in you that you're looking to do?
Yeah.
The second thing, because then I think it can help you define a little bit what type of business you want to open, because there are tons out there and tons of ways you can do it and tons of ways that you can make it work for you and be successful at it. But it's important then if you understand the why, you can kind of understand the how a little bit better. So, some people just want to open a small office and rent a room out and kind of just provide the service to the people they want to provide it to. And that's a business, right? You're one employee, you're probably self-employed. Maybe you're incorporated, maybe you're just registered, maybe you're an independent contractor, but that's still something. You're offering a service. You are a business. And technically any AT that is working should see themselves somewhat as a business, right? Because if you are not selling what you do and you're not good at what you do, you're not going to bring in the business that you want to bring in.
Yeah.
So that's really important. If you want to, be the owner of a huge empire, then of course that's fine. But if it should match up with your whys. So that would be my second thing, is just, try and look at the different ways that you can do it, because there are a million different ways and there's a million different setups, and you can have sole proprietorship or partnerships or whatever, and it's dynamic with time. And I guess the third would just be to let them know. And I would say this is probably true for a lot of business owners, that they probably all feel this way. But it's going to take time. It's going to take a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. But in the end, I think I speak for myself. It's 100% worth it. And for me, it's exactly what I wanted to be doing. And if you don't want to open a business, that's okay too, because the reality is business owners need good people, almost better people than themselves, to help them, right? So you need to surround yourself with good people. You need to surround yourself with a good support system. And more importantly, probably surround yourself with people that know more than you, because you can't know everything, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So having those mentors is really helpful, but also, like, I'm not an accountant. Yes, I have to do day-to-day finances, but like, that's not what I was trained to do, nor is it what I want to do for 10 hours a day. So, it's important to find people and surround yourself with really strong people that understand your vision and that can help you get there. It's never doing it alone, ever.
That's good.
And I'm very fortunate to have two partners that we work phenomenally together, and our strengths are totally different. And then also to have, all the therapists and physios and kins and doctors that we have working with us, they're just phenomenal at their craft. And, they make me look better because of that. So
yeah,
it's pretty
important. I think that's a super important point to make, is like the things that you're potentially more weak in, having people that have those strengths that give you that complete whole. And it's fine to accept, I guess, being weaker in other things. You're not going to be like amazing at everything, like you kind of said. So the next thing is just kind of connecting the patience thing, which we talked a bit about before, and the whole business thing. How does an individual know, like, let's say for me, how would I know when I'm ready, I guess, to open up a business? Or are you never ready? You just have to kind of jump to it.
Be honest, I don't know if I was ever ready. I knew I needed to change something. In the point where I was at my life, I knew I always wanted to open something. I was looking around with my partner at the time, and we were trying to look at different ways we can kind of expand on Champlain. And we started meeting and talking with people. And again, it feels like it just fell into my lap. But as I'm realizing with time, what you're putting out, you will get back. So it was work that I had done without physically knowing that that's what I was going for.
Yeah.
And when we opened, it's always a huge learning curve. Like owning a business, you're never going to know everything. And I feel like every day I'm learning something new. And so sometimes you wonder, like, oh my God, am I really cut out for this? But the reality is like, if you're a small business owner, like you're putting out fires a lot of the time, right? There's new things that come up that you didn't even know could happen. And voila, it is. So I don't know if anyone's ever really ready. I think you have to, I don't know if we ever know if we're ready for anything in life, but I think you just kind of have to look at it as like, you have to be able to be a little bit vulnerable. So if you feel like you're able to do that, that's good. I think you have to be willing to put that blood, sweat, and tears in. So if you are starting something and you feel ready to do that, then that's also a positive thing. And yeah, I think it's really about just understanding yourself and knowing, like, am I ready to put this work in? Because reality is you'll never know if you're ready to own a business. Just like you don't know if you're ready to have a baby. Like you don't know what it's actually going to be like. So yeah, I think that's probably more. To put it in short, no, I don't think you ever really know if you're ready. You might be, but you might not know. And when you do, you just kind of have to look at, what it entails and what you're willing to put in.
Right. It's good. So having been a part of this whole ownership experience, then what would you say is what would you say is important in being a successful leader specifically? Because you said you'd be your own boss, but also everyone's boss. So what characteristics or what things do you think is important for someone that needs to be able to lead well a group?
Yeah. I actually took a course in this in university, which I thought was really interesting because it put into context everything I was already doing, but I was like, oh, okay, it's actually a thing. The first thing is, if you're trying to lead a group, you have to have motivation, right? So you have to look at having a group of people that are motivated by something. A lot of times extrinsic money, studies have shown, is not really, it doesn't work. It might work for having that carrot dangled in front of somebody, but it doesn't work forever. What people typically, and in my experience as well as just research, typically people want to have a purpose, right? We all want purpose. So you have to find people who want the same purpose as what you're willing to give them, right? So you need to find kind of like a tribe or a group of people that have motivation through themselves intrinsically. And if they don't, then you need to try to figure out what they're looking for, what their purpose is, and then try to feed that to them. I think that's one thing. The other thing is I think that's the other thing. It's going to help them kind of go as a group versus you kind of leading people into battle. I think a leader is, you're only as strong as your weakest link. And so you can't look at it as like, well, I'm going to direct and I'm going to try and tell you guys what to do and we're going to go there together. You kind of have to inspire people a little bit to come up with their own solutions and be self-sufficient, and also, work as a group towards your common goal. And that's kind of the tricky part, because there's not really, as far as I know, an equation out there or a formula out there that's going to give you those answers. So I do think it is about, trying to, again, if we talk about communicating, trying to understand people's needs and wants and what their goals are in life, and then trying to align that with what you do so that you can help bring them towards, success for the company, individually, for yourself, for all of that.
That's good. That's really good. That's awesome. So
sometimes I feel like I'm just gibbering.
No, that's really useful. So the last question would be, just in your opinion, or I guess for yourself, what is the single most important thing that I guess is necessary for you to be able to like maximize your performance? Specifically for you, what's the single most important thing?
You're talking about on an everyday life?
I'm talking about on an everyday life. I'm talking about if it's something like, I don't know, you gotta, let's say, write every morning. Is it something like I need to spend like time with my friends once a week? Like, what's probably the most important thing that you need to do to be able to maximize your performance?
I think it is people oriented, as you can kind of probably guess from all this conversation. As you know, being with the students in Perform, it's an amazing way to connect with them. And it's not always about learning and trying to improve. You need to have that downtime to connect in other ways. And to me, I think that that's really, really important. And it does help me kind of shut off and relax and just get a different perspective on things. It's just like training, right? Training, you need rest days, you need days to recover, and that's really important. So whatever it is in your life that helps you recover best, you need to do that. So for me, it is people. It is, the people in my life. It's also, seeing you guys every day and seeing my other therapist every day, and just, making sure everyone's okay. That would probably be one of my biggest ones. Like I said, sleep and rest is really important. So kind of knowing when you just might need to shut off, I think as APs, we always have a tendency, we're all yes people. We say yes to everything. Like, you have to look at your goals, and if it's not aligning, it might be okay to say no. And it also is sometimes okay to say no because you need to take care of yourself, and you say yes to yourself. So you have to look at it as that, as not saying no to someone else, but yes to you. So that's still a struggle for me, to be honest. I still don't have that down packed, although this whole quarantine situation is helping me understand that a little bit more, and seeing that I can be productive, but also, not running around like a chicken with my head cut off. So it's nice.
That's good. That's awesome. So just, I guess the last thing is just telling pretty much everyone out there watching where they can, I guess, find more information about you.
About me?
Yeah.
I don't know, LinkedIn.
Like, where do you want to direct them? Like RTP?
Yeah, you can go to the RTP page. It's rtpperformance.ca. That's our clinic. We are also on Instagram. Through this whole COVID thing, we're putting up a lot of different capsules, trying to get exposure to a lot of different professionals as well. So check that out. We're also on Facebook at Clinique RTP Performance. No, not .ca, it's Facebook. So yeah, I'm pretty sure I'm on the Perform site too. There might be something about me there. But yeah, that would be probably the main thing.
Awesome. So thank you guys so much for watching. That's pretty much it for the first episode. And thank you again, Vic, for coming on. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. And you did a great job, and it's a great initiative for you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for watching, and if you made it all the way through the video, I really appreciate it. It did take a lot of effort to put this whole thing into place, but the first episode of the Path Project is now come to an end, and I think it went really well. Guys, go back and listen to some of the stuff she said. Like, there's some really good insight. I learned a lot from just that 45 minutes sitting down and talking to her. Thank you so much again for watching, and shout out again to Vic for taking the time to interview with me. Leave a like on the video if you enjoyed the first ever episode. Comment down below and subscribe to my channel if you enjoyed and you want to stay locked in and follow me along the journey. If not, subscribe, and I'm signing out. Peace.